chat box, right?
Yeah, I think give it a couple of seconds more. And,
Yeah, sure.
if you
Shall I start?
just give me a second, I'm just confirming we are live on Facebook.
Okay.
And, just a second. I think we are live. Good to go.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me introduce you to our discussion we shall be having this lovely evening and the guests we will be having the discussions with. We have architect ASHISH Sharan Lal, partner at Alleya Associates, Calcutta. He is a graduate from SPA, Delhi. He has more than 30 years of practice in the fields of master planning and architecture, documentation and heritage conservation, appropriate technology, and corporate exhibits. He has been working throughout the country and has recently worked on rehabilitation projects in the earthquake hit areas around Kathmandu, Nepal. And we also have architect Milan Bandyopadhyay, who is the principal architect at Set Square Architecture and Interiors. He has been in practice for around 20 years and specializes in affordable housing and industrial architecture. He has completed several projects on commercial and residential buildings all over Eastern India. He is an active member of the Indian Institute of Interior Design. And myself, Pratyush Lala. I'm an associate professor at the College of Architecture, OmDayal Group of Institutions. I had completed my post-graduation studies in integrated building design from the University of Strathclyde, Glasgow in the year 2005. And I have been in practice and in teaching ever since. My specialization includes design management services, graphic design, and interior works. Good evening, gentlemen, Mr. Sharan and Mr. Milan.
Good evening.
Welcome to our discussion today. And we would really like to understand your point of view and suggestions on the topic and on the subjects that we would discuss. The times we live in are really unprecedented. Hence, there is a desire to understand the future and the effect on our lives our present times will be having. We are here to discuss what shall be the market demand for professionals post COVID-19 and as a consequence, the trade crafts that shall get a preference as a career choice. Our world at present has come to a standstill, but inevitably and eventually it will slowly start to roll and catch up to the usual pace of life. But definitely, it is going to be a different world. And in that perspective, I would like to start the discussion. What happens then? Who will be in demand and who will be more sought after? The professions that might get a better edge for giving both financial security and job satisfaction. So I would like to ask Mr. Sharan that, what do you think? Will this tradecraft just survive or will it flourish? And in what ways? Mr. Sharan, you have to unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so given the fact that we are going through this special circumstances, if I may call it that, it is nothing to be alarmed about in the long run. But in the short run, yes, it will definitely have repercussions on not just our profession, but all professions. In the long run, however, architecture being what it is, by nature, it's a very fundamental profession. And whatever the situation the world is going through or has been in the past, architecture is a basic necessity that cannot be sidelined, or it's not going to discontinue, so to say. So that's a short answer to your first part of the question. Second part of the question is in what way it will be affected. It still needs to be seen. It definitely, things are going to change, at least in the short and the medium term. So the brief for the architects is going to emerge slightly further down the line as to the norms which for social distancing and working on sites, working in an office, and all these things will slowly become clearer as to how this is going to unfold. But like, for instance, working from home is the catchword nowadays. But that is only possible when you talk about the profession of architecture itself. But when it comes to the fruition of our work, which is actually at the site, we can't really work from home on a site. So construction processes and how things are converted on the site is going to change. How? We have to wait and see.
Wonderful. Mr. Milan, would you like to add something to it?
Yeah, I fully agree with him. Obviously, architecture is a basic profession, obviously, and so we need not have to worry much for the future. I fully agree with him. But I feel in some cases that we as the professionals, we have failed to communicate our importance to the mass common people. So that I think we are lagging. And for that, we need to raise this awareness within the common people. What is the utilization of an architect as a professional involved within a project? What, irrespective of the scale. So that can increase the involvement of the architects widely. Usually, the common people has an image of an architect as very elite class and very costly affair of a project, but it is something which is not always true. So I think we need to put ourselves over there also to express the utility of the profession, the professionals as well, and to make it wide open to the common people. So I think we are lagging there also, and we need to work on this. Yeah, as far as the post-COVID, the site, yeah, please.
Yeah, but I was just about to ask you that, do you think that would be more possible after the scenario, after the post-pandemic scenario, or
Yes,
that would be
yes, obviously, yes, obviously, because the things, the concept will change now a bit, because see, we are now emphasizing on work from home. So the concept of spaces, that will also change. So we need to inherit all those things in the future, so that a space is being utilized like that with this kind of scenarios. So I think that will put an impact on the planning as well as thinking process.
Oh, okay. That's wonderful. I mean, as much as I understand, let's start this discussion with Mr. Milan. As much as I understand, though, it's from a very basic layman's experience and not from the background of an economics professor or, that kind of an understanding of economics and market, that, post-COVID or post-pandemic, the market will start valuing small setups and independent and freelance service providers than larger conglomerates. So
Yes.
does architectural education itself, can it help produce entrepreneurs? Can it help fill in this gap that would come up?
Yes, obviously, because see, I mean, for each and every aspects, you need to have proper design spaces to communicate this language in between the I mean, entrepreneurs or the users, whatever may be the classes. So in this aspect, the architecture obviously will help you to develop the society as well as the post-COVID aspects are concerned. So that will obviously help you.
Right, but I mean, does the education, that is the the studies of BR, Bachelor of Architecture, does that help to set up the mind of a young individual to become an entrepreneur?
Uh, Education system, if you say, as we are into now, the type of education system that we are into now, yeah, this is, I think we lack somewhere where we have the sense of the basic practicalities. We are lagging. Still, we are lagging. Once the same problems that we have also faced when we passed out, we were very much, lack of concept we had when we were designing something, and the practicality to execute that thing, there was a huge gap. So that gap has to be filled up, and obviously the concept of schools and colleges, those will remain. But online classes, theory part, online classes on those things, that will increase. So obviously this will help.
Wonderful. Mr. Sharan, what is your point of view in this matter?
I very much agree with Milon, what he says, but I've got one more take on this, which is architectural education, as we all know, is fundamentally a liberal arts education. It is a lot to do with people and people, their aspirations, the social aspect of architecture I'm talking about, which is very distinct from the mathematical and the scientific aspect of construction. So as a part of our 5-year or however many years we study architecture, we have innate ability to understand people's problems and try to find solutions to them. Now, in this post-COVID scenario, one part is, of course, the spatial and the engineering aspect of executing architectural projects. But there is one very significant aspect which is going to come into play now, as we see with what is happening with our migrant labor and various other sections of the society. Intuitively, an architectural student, after having cleared 5 years of education in the liberal arts domain, will be better positioned to understand what exactly is required and be in a better position to create solutions for them than somebody. I would not call it condescendingly, but let's say an engineer's viewpoint to it. So that education is very important, number one, and that should be that is already there in our syllabi, and it should be enhanced to it should be shored up to take this problem that is going to emerge out of the COVID situation in a very sort of organized and structured manner. And secondly, the organization of briefs. I mean, till now we were falling back on standards, Neufert's and things like that, which have been developed over the years, taking a certain kind of situation, keeping a certain kind of situation in mind. Now, those things will have to be questioned now in the new scenario, and approached both from the point of view of dimensions and spatial connotations, as well as the social and the economic angle. I don't know whether I'm making myself clear or not, but there's Yeah.
Yeah, and but I just also would like to ask you that, since you have also been on and off, have been invited to colleges to either give lectures or to assess students' works, that is the education of architecture itself in our universities and in our colleges, does that set the mindset of an individual uh, to stand apart, or rather become leaders for that matter, because entrepreneurs are basically leaders.
Yeah, see, leadership qualities is basically it depends a lot on the individual and the self motivation aspect of and the nature of the individual also. But I think one area where our institutional setups could take a look at, pay attention to, and it talk very widely. It's not my idea alone. That there is very little practical knowledge or sort of field situation that the student is introduced to in the course of the 5 years. It only happens once, the internship or at the end of the fourth year or something like that. But that is something that really needs to be looked into carefully. And in my view, a little bit of field work should be, or if it is possible, should be introduced in each and every year of the 5 years of education. That builds, that brings you in contact with the reality of the world of your profession. And then leadership is a quality that is, like a dormant seed in everybody. And it is not necessary that everybody is very good at, let's say, designing or crafting or detailing. Some people may be good at organizations and managing people, talking to the craftspersons. And as we know, as we go our profession through life, we come to realize that, okay, I'm good at this and I can do this. And architecture at the end of the day is a collaborative group activity. So
Absolutely.
one person can do something that he or she is good at, and it becomes, and more and more people join the team, and that's how a good practice and a good professional institution is formed. So, two or three things. One is more field work. Second is not necessarily try to force every student in the same
More.
narrow confines of what leadership is all about. And the third is to open up the minds of students at a very young age, that it is a very horizontally spread field, and it is not necessary to get stuck in the same rut for everybody. And by the time one finishes with education, he hopefully would have found her track or his track.
Mr. Sharan, I would like to take a cue from you, something you said earlier, and ask you that, does architectural education have any advantage over other professional studies for that matter? Does it open the minds to a greater prospect or a greater horizon?
I think the answer to this question lies in what I said earlier, in
Yeah,
the broad-based approach that we have to architectural. Again, I can only repeat that the liberal arts approach that we have. We do a little bit of sociology, we do structures, we do mechanics, we do field work, we do so there's a little bit of each and every aspect of life which is thrown into architectural education, which somehow at the end of the day, when a student comes out of college, the only sort of window that is available to him or her is that to join an office with the hope of finding a table and a computer where you can sit and draw. But that is not the only thing. I mean, I'm talking from my experience. We do look for people who have special abilities in different aspects of architecture, not just necessarily designing and drawing and creating spaces and colors and finishes and textures, but also to handle other aspects of it, which is half of architecture actually, as far as I know. Yeah.
Mr. Milan, would you please care to add something to that?
Yeah, I fully agree with him. See, architecture, it is not only with the architects. It is architecture is made from the common people itself. It is because of the social need, the practices, the rituals, as well as climate, environment. So from there, architecture has come up. So architecture is widely spread, and it involves almost all the aspects of livelihood. So it's a vast thing. So obviously it will help and have its effect in other fields also. So I fully agree with him.
Mr. Milan, one thing is for sure that in a post-pandemic world, the post-pandemic future is going to be different, if not drastically, at least perceptibly different. As Mr. Sharan was talking about spaces and social distancing and so on and so forth. So my topic of to discuss here is, does architectural education give the younger generation the perspective to deal with a future world that is post pandemic, that is post COVID?
See, obviously, the pace of the what Mr. Saran said, that we need to develop the practicalities. We need to go for more field works. I really doubt whether those things will happen very frequently as we used to do. So there will be obviously a lack in that. And again, in the education system, I feel sorry to say this, in the education system will lack this till date. So after post-COVID, I don't know how we will be tackling this part. So this is obviously has to be thought about with the developments, with the situations, how to go with this.
No, I understand that none of us know what the future is going to be, and hence we really do not know how to tailor make or how to cut it to cut the course to suit the future. But my question is does the architectural education make our younger generation sensitive enough to deal with a future that is you know uh, quite an unprecedented scenario?
Yes, obviously. Uh, I mean, the social aspects are very much involved with architecture. So our training, our education will obviously help the students as well as us to think about the future post-COVID. That is for sure.
Wonderful. I would like to invite Professor Kalyan Mukherjee, the head of the Department of Architecture College in OBGI. Sir, would you please join us?
Yeah. Hi, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening, Sharan. Good evening, Milan. I was listening to all of you pretty keenly. And when we are talking about the topic of discussion, that is, what happens beyond the pandemic? What happens to the young man's career? So basically, when we talk about architecture as a career for the young generation, talk about this issue of being creative. Certain people with this aspirations to join in as a creative professional to do something for the world. And of late, we've been having discussions with the academia where people have been asked to come up with projects from various faculties. People have been asked to come up with projects which could contribute to a society which has been, which might, get struck by such pandemics or, such situations later on. Now we have a subject in the curriculum. It's called disaster management. How architects are supposed to manage disasters. Now Sharan, architect Sharan Lal has some experience on working in post-disaster Nepal. Now the architect contributed. So, there are situations where we need to go in as architects and contribute to such situations. And, obviously when we have examples there in front of us, we all, it's not just the new nice world that we are talking about. We are also talking about the world which has been hit by such disasters. So I would request Mr. Sharan to talk about his experiences in Nepal and how he went about it. Very briefly, maybe. Mr. Sharan.
Yeah, so our Nepal project was basically triggered by a very similar kind of incident, which was the earthquake. I mean, it wasn't a virus, it was the earthquake, where overnight the whole situation changed. Our initial this thing was that, we must do something, and as an architect, what can I do? So we used to do a lot of trekking in those days. So this was a village, not in Kathmandu. It is about 80 kilometers from Kathmandu, which is a remote area, where the entire village was pulled down by the earthquake, and a lot of loss of property and life was witnessed. So basically, to cut this thing short, what we did was the local method of construction over there was two-storied houses in stone and mud mortar. And what had happened was the first floor of all the buildings, almost 80% of the buildings collapsed because the method of construction was not very appropriate for handling seismic forces, and there was an abundance of bamboo in that area, which we noticed. So what we set out doing was we redesigned their structures using their existing material, where we restricted the ground floor constructions to stone, and we constructed the upper floor and the basic structure, the frame of the building in bamboo, in treated bamboo. Now that's the long and the short of it is. But my major contribution over there was, let's say 30% as an architect, but 70% as a motivator. I went there with a team of 3 or 4 people, and we did this entire project using the villagers to construct their own houses. We did not have contractors. We did not have specially able craftspeople. It so happened that in those villages, people make their own houses, so they are well versed with, stone masonry and woodworking and things like that. But we held workshops, and we educated them, trained them how to treat bamboo so that it doesn't get infested with insects, and then we gave them structural inputs as to how to make joints, etc. But the construction itself was handled by the villagers themselves. So I go back to what I was talking about earlier, is that there are many offshoots to architecture, and this is again talking back to the original thing that we are taught to in our curriculum. We are taught to deal with people, and not just the structural aspect of it, but also the sociological aspect of it and the economical aspect of it. And we managed. That's what it turned out to be. It was to reinforce the villagers' faith in themselves, and providing them with some external technical knowledge which they didn't possess at that time. So it was a combination of both things. We took some things from our side, and they brought in their own hands and people, and reconstructed these houses. That's how it worked.
Yeah, so that's how it is. Before we get into taking questions, some of which are coming through right now, I believe. you see, this thing about the architectural career is, the most interesting part is you're dealing with people. And quite often I have, told my students that it's not about the buildings. Architecture is not only about the buildings. It is also about the people who inhabit those buildings. And when we talk about a situation where the damage is not physical, the damage is not structural, like an earthquake. The damage is, to be controlled by social distancing. The key word right now is social distancing. So how does the society, there's a lot of ingenuity which goes into this, how the architect helps in providing social distancing and at the same time provides a comfortable environment. So we are looking at a career which promises us a lot of questions. Let's say we come up with a lot of questions, and the situation that we face up to is pretty interesting, pretty creative, pretty ingenious. Pratush, can we have those questions, please?
There's someone, Mr. Gautam Shengupto. He says, as a student of class 12, which stream of engineering should be beneficial to take in university that should be profitable and job satisfaction, taking into account the present situation that may continue to affect for a year or two more?
Milan, what do you say?
Sorry, I can get it. If you can please repeat it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Gautam Shengupto asks that as a student of class 12, which stream of engineering should be beneficial to take in university that should be profitable and also have a job satisfaction, taking into account the present situation that may continue for a year or two?
According to me, any basic engineering, mechanical, civil, architecture, these basic engineerings will never, will always be there. And it will have its functioning with the human life forever. So any basic engineering will help, according to me.
Mr. Sharan, would you like to add something to it?
Yeah, pretty much what Milo said. It's engineering. I mean, an added ingredient with any of the engineering or any other course is that self-motivation, as I said. So Gautam will be well advised to sort of go into a little bit of self introspection and see which aspect of engineering motivates him more, and then give it a good shot. Be with it with all sincerity, hard work, and yes, the combination in any field will be prosperous and successful.
Wonderful. Mr. Sharan, I would also like to ask you that, first, what is your advice to the students who are studying architecture at present? When they pass out, how do they start? What to expect of the market? And how should they prepare themselves?
The market, I mean, I'll be very frank over here with the students who are going to be passing out just now. Be prepared for some difficult times for about a year, at least. So if you're looking for a comfortable, cushy job straight out of college, it may be possible, but not for all of you. So the other thing is to in this period of time, when the market takes its time to limp back to normalcy, you can do a number of things. One is you can upskill yourself and go into areas which you always wanted to touch upon, but you have not done as yet. Think about working in collaborative teams. So instead of just looking for a sort of an appointment in an office, you can, if you use this time to skill yourself and to create a network of like-minded professionals, and look for opportunities where you can make yourself and everybody involved with you useful. No, I'm not talking about the money aspect of it. Like I said in the beginning, it is going to be difficult. But if you manage to, and since you are young, you should be able to go through this difficult time. But the important thing is to come out on the other side of it stronger and better skilled, so that when the opportunity presents itself, you are up there for grabs.
Ms. Milan, would you like to, give us your thoughts?
This is not only for this situation only. Yeah, this is post-COVID will be more struggling for us, for the young people who will be passing out. But presently also we are facing the same problem. Maybe in a little bit lesser volume, but post-COVID will be more. I fully agree with him, with Mr. SHARAN, that the youngsters who are passing now, the freshers, they have to go through very hardship works without thinking of earning much. Now, obviously, they must have their earnings properly also. But to build themselves to face the practical fail, face the practicalities of this profession, that is very important for them. So they must prepare themselves for at least a few years of their beginning with this kind of struggle. Then they can come out with a good future and obviously with good experience.
I would just like to add one more positive point excuse me, on this topic for the youngsters, is that because of the COVID situation and the way it has been treating various ages of people, youngsters are the least affected by this virus. So as the economy and the construction activities and all other activities start limping back to normal, you people are going to be in great demand to go and actually execute the work at site. But since you are, I mean, like I said earlier, since you are freshers out of college, you may not have all that practical experience with you. So the thing to do is to keep hitting at it, keep working on those aspects of your abilities, which will make you useful to people like us, let's say, who can take our briefs and go and execute it at the site, because of the same reason, that is, you are in a much better position to do so than old fogies like us.
Professor Mukherjee, as a head of the department of an architectural college, what is your advice?
Yeah, I wouldn't, I wouldn't call it an advice, but I wouldn't look at the situation in a more positive manner. When we are faced with problems, every problem is actually offering us an opportunity to explore further. So the young mind can, as Mr. SHARAN said, that we need to. This is the time in the system we need to upscale ourselves. You need to acquire more skills. Skill doesn't always mean sitting back at home and learning a few software techniques and all that. Skill also means, as he said, I go back to the days when I was starting off. I started off some 30 years back. So I used to work in an office, and during those times there was this. The young architect would always like to go to the site and to look at things right there happening. So, working at site has always been a good exposure for myself, for people like me. As we go through the site, we get to pick up things more faster. So that is one way of looking at it. looking at skill sets which which we need to pick up more, that we missed out on during the college days. So that is one way. The other thing is, there is this option of going for higher studies. You look at people who want to, get through to a master's degree. So this would be the right time to go for a master's. Either you do it at an institute from India, or you go abroad, whatever. Right now, we have students from the college who are in Italy, the heart of as we call it, the epicenter of all COVID issues, Italy, where it all started off. And they are staying put. One of them put up a video on how they're coping up, how they're leading their lives, daily lives. So it's interesting. And at the same time, these people are also acquiring these skills, which, most of us are missing out on. So that's how I would look at it. And plus, instead of jobs, the architect also has this option of starting off on their own. The architect is basically a professional. So the professional architect has always this option left to him or her. They can all start it. So that is how it sort of, stands apart from all the other engineering streams and engineering related streams that we have. So you have this option of starting on your own. And a few of our students in the past have done so.
We have a question here from Facebook viewers. Shubhankar Dhar asks, as an architect, is working from home really an option in India, given the present working infrastructure and workmanship? Mr. Milan, would you like to give us your thoughts?
Yes, obviously, we have that environment, and we are skilled also to work from home, and we are doing it. We have adopted it slowly because we had to. Because those who are in practices, like I'm also in practice, so I had to, because I have to deliver my projects properly, and we need to satisfy the client's need as well as the site's need, though the site is not working, but still we need to plan when the site should start. So we are doing it. So we will be developing on this with the future, with the requirements, and with the situations. We'll be developing it. So it is possible. Why not?
Given the infrastructure, is coordination between you and your associates, does it affect that?
Yes, obviously, because it affects a little bit, but still we are managing because we have the technologies to manage it, but not perfectly as we physically meet and explain. That is not that much efficient, obviously, but we will slowly develop this. We'll slowly develop this.
Mr. Sharan, would you please add something to it? What's your experience and what's
I think this work from home is not not a new phenomenon. It is the terminology is new, but work from home involves even when you are in office. How are we working? We are constantly emailing files to each other. The drawings are, at least in our office, they are hardly ever discussed on paper. We are all the time discussing on our screens and then converting it to a 3D to see how it works, whether it works or not, and then going back to our computers. So work from home is an extension of that in the sense that you can continue, carry on doing the work from home, except, I mean, the buck stops when it comes to site work. I mean, you can't execute. For execution, I'd like to personally stand and see what skill is being executed in what manner for reasons of quality and precision. Now, that kind of a thing, it is possible to do. I mean, it will be possible to do in the future in a work from home situation also, where I can imagine there will be handheld devices which can, monitor and record what is happening, exactly what is happening at the site, and then you can rectify it and issue instructions to the robot or to the craftsperson or whatever. But that is, that is something that, it sort of peels that personal layer of architecture. For me, it's very, it's great pleasure to be at the site and to see how a problem has occurred and how to solve it. And that is a very site-specific thing. You cannot do it from home. So yes, working on the initial phases of the project when you're dealing with associates and consultants, yes, it is very much possible. But at site, I don't see that happening. At least not in our country in the near future, because our workforce is also very, very largely uneducated, and they depend on verbal instructions, on hand holding and things like that. I'm not talking about very, very large projects which have infrastructure of big offices which work like automated work sequences. I'm talking about architecture projects where we architects still go to the site and see it coming up. So that's a gap that needs to be filled. We have to see how that is going to work out in the future.
We have Pratik Datto who's asked a question. He asks, should the professionals consider post-COVID scenario as an opportunity or a threat?
Who is this question to?
Mr. Sharan, would you please?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a huge opportunity. I would think that the post-COVID scenario is going to throw up so many new challenges, and anybody who's interested in solving problems is going to be thrilled at the prospects. Like, I'll give you a specific example. All the schools are shut now, and there is going to be a huge difference in how the students are going to be readmitted when the school starts going. So there's already talk about staggering of classes in days, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, certain classes will come, and then because of the social distancing, and then students will be let out into playgrounds at certain times, and then another set will be let out. So all this, any kind of deviation from set norms requires a design solution. It requires logistics, it requires circulation, it requires looking at a single three staircases instead of one, requires ramps and various kinds of things. So it's a huge opportunity, according to me, not just in terms of the current set of values and templates that we have and we follow blindly, but also in terms of the norms that have been set in the National Building Code and the various standards that we refer to. Each and every page of that has to be reread and gone through and corrections made into. So that's a big opportunity. I think it's anybody who's got a little bit of interest in going a little deeper into what goes inside a building will be very happy. And soon, once the architecture profession comes back onto track, people who have an in-depth knowledge of these things will flourish.
I think one of our viewers has expressed a thought which is very much in line with whatever Mr. Sharan has been talking about. Mr. Sukrit Sen says that I think such crisis situations have happened in the past also, and we have learned to adapt to such situations. We should look at this as an opportunity and look at factors like public health, which have been exposed as a neglected factor. And architects and engineers should keep a note of it in the future. Mr. Milon, would you like to add something to this point?
Yeah, obviously, because post-COVID, everything has changed. Everything will change, and it's like rebooting the system. So many things will be added, many things will be taken out. So we have to think in a different way. So there are aspects, and obviously, with Mr. Sharan as well as Shukrit, I know we all know Sukrit very well. Sukrit was our junior. He's doing very good also. And I'm also with Sukrit because these social aspects, the health systems, the healthcare, all those things will have a reboot. So in that case, we need to think about everything in a full new way. So there will be, ifs and buts, then we need to change what we are thinking. So these things will happen. So we will be in a different new track, in a new boost.
Professor Mukherjee, I would like to ask you, post-COVID scenario, should the architectural education also include a few things, more disaster management that you were talking about earlier? Should it involve more education of that sort?
Yeah, I believe so. As we go along, things have been evolving right from the days before I became a student. So, architectural education has included over a period of time many subjects and issues which were not there right at the beginning. So as the society gets along and as we travel down history, we need to include, and we need to adapt, and we need to sort of adjust to situations. And obviously these subjects and these issues, they get involved in they become part of the curricula as we get along. So we might take a few cues right now and we should include them. The Council of Architecture, who decides the curricula for all of us, they would be taking note. And as I follow their string of conversations, I believe they're thinking on similar lines.
Wonderful. I mean, it was a wonderful discussion and a very insightful discussion, I should say. And I'm sure that this discussion has helped quite a few of us and quite a few young aspirants who would like to study architecture. So I would thank my viewers and, of course, my guests, Mr. Sharan, Mr. Milan, and Professor Mukherjee, and joining us today for this beautiful evening, for this discussion. And we would like to conclude it for the day. Thank you.
Before we go off the line, I just noticed there was one question regarding the admission procedure to architecture courses. There's one piece of information which I have come to know of. The Council of Architecture had, since NATA examination or qualifying at NATA is one of the criteria for admission, NATA exams are probably being postponed till August. I mean, we are going to have two sessions of the exam, one during the first week of August and another during the last week of August. And that's how the information has come through till now, as of date. So that is one thing which I would like to know that viewer who put up that question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I guess we can conclude it now.
Thank you, Pratyush, for having me. It was a great pleasure to share my thoughts with you all. Milan, thanks.
Thanks. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Stay safe, stay at home.
Right.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.